We've got the Supreme Court Justice. I think we can skip this one and go to the Reuters story. So basically, remember a few months ago, Joe Biden said he was going to nominate a black woman to be the U.S. Supreme Court judge. But he openly said, I mean, fair enough, he wants to make the US Supreme Court more diverse and more representative of the population of America, which, that's a good, there shouldn't be barriers to black women being, Supreme Court judges.
That's why there aren't.
But, I mean, arguably, there aren't. Now, in 2022, there definitely aren't. I mean, there's definitely not any barriers to, people of color being in adverts. Or, I mean...
Anything else they want to do?
Yeah.
So I wish I could do this. That was always allowed.
I haven't seen a white couple in an advert in it's been about 18 months. But I mean, I might be joking before Victoria Coren attacks me on Twitter again for being racist. There's a possibility I might have been joking. I might have seen some white couples in adverts.
It may be true that the comedian was
I'm hyperbolizing to make a point. But anyway. But yeah, Biden. So, he needs a new Supreme Court justice. And instead of just quietly, bringing in, so he's got the list of all the people and then he picks the black woman. He says up front, I'm going to pick the black woman. I'm going to pick a black woman. People are like, what's her name? He's like, I don't know yet. Doesn't matter.
He could have just been like, I'm going to go for the best person for the job, and it happens to be her.
Yeah.
Instead, he was like, no, I want a blackest womanist.
So instead, he's created all this resentment. He's done this sort of racially and socially divisive thing by saying, she is getting nominated purely based on her identity, on her protected characteristics. And, I've no doubt she's capable of doing the job, but why would you destroy her credibility by saying this before you've even appointed her? But anyway, let's see who he's appointed. If we move on to the next little tab, so here we go. So she can't. This is her being asked to define a woman, which it is complicated these days. You know what I mean? But if we play this,
can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
I can't.
You can't?
Not in this context.
So
I'm not a biologist.
The meaning of the word woman is so unclear and controversial that you can't give me a definition?
Adult human female.
That's transphobic. No, I'd say a definition of a woman is somebody with tits who gives me a boner.
Slanesh.
What's that?
Slanesh.
What's Slanesh?
It's a god from 40k, the god of deviancy and degeneracy.
Sounds hot.
Is it a he?
It's a they. It's a they.
Apparently, officially, it's a prince.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Anyway, she's saying she can't define a woman because she's not a biologist, which I know that doesn't bode well for dealing with more complicated questions, such as any other question in the universe. Like, how do you cross this road? I don't know. I'm not a civil engineer. Fucking how long is this piece of string? I don't know. I'm not a stringologist. A string theory. That's yeah. But she can't define a woman. I mean, she could at least have a go. Like, they've mostly got tits.
She's gonna be like, probably like me. Like, no.
Yeah, I'm a woman. Yeah. Well, actually, I'm a woman as well, because you can just say you're a woman.
Yeah.
Which Ted Cruz actually did. He raised the point that in fact, I think it's in the next clip. If we clip.
But the question was.
But let me ask, under the modern leftist sensibilities, if I decide right now that I'm a woman, then apparently I'm a woman. Does that mean that I would have Article 3 standing to challenge a gender-based restriction?
Senator, to the extent that you are asking me about who has the ability to bring lawsuits based on gender, those kinds of issues are working their way through the courts, and I'm not able to comment on them.
Okay, if I can change my gender, if I can be a woman, and then an hour later, if I decide I'm not a woman anymore, I guess I would lose Article 3 standing. tell me, does that same principle apply to other protected characteristics? For example, I'm an Hispanic man. Could I decide I was an Asian man? Would I have the ability to be an Asian man and challenge Harvard's discrimination because I made that decision?
Senator, I'm not able to answer your question. You're asking me about hypotheticals and
My brain
I'm
doesn't
asking
work.
how you would assess standing if I came in and said, I have decided I identify as an Asian man.
I would assess standing the way I assess other legal issues, which is to listen to the arguments made by the parties, consider the relevant precedents, and the constitutional principles involved, and make a determination.
Okay,
She can't do that now.
Like you were just given the arguments.
Yeah. She knows the constitutional principles because she's being elected. She's been placed in the Supreme Court. So, yeah, I mean, it exposes the sort of mania and the fallacies at the heart of a lot of wokeism. The fact that you can self-identify according to woke logic. You can just self. So I'm a woman and I'm a woman and
I'm black.
obviously these things. Break down on an individual level because then you get like the Karen, the guy in Scotland who was being sent to jail for sexual offences, and he said I'm a woman, and then they sent him to a women's jail
In which he then sexually assaulted the female inmates.
in which he then sexually assaulted the female inmates, and they extended his sentence. So then that's exactly what he wanted, so he could do it more. So yeah, it's ridiculous.
Can't silence reality.
Yeah, yeah.
be done.
Yeah, and all right, maybe an absolutist approach where you say like a woman is an adult human female that excludes trans women, but what about as a compromise, trans women are trans women?
I think
And-
the adult human female still implies that.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily
This is
transphobic.
actually officially the prison system here for people wondering. That's the solution we came to in government,
Yeah.
was that we need to set up trans women prisons and trans male prisons because we just can't mix them with general population.
Yeah.
Like there are too many concerns.
Yeah,
So yeah, that was the solution.
right.
So
Yeah.
it's that.
Yeah, because obviously there's issues if you send a trans woman who's put some effort in, you send her to a male prison, that's going to be
Yeah,
bad.
how do you think that's going to go as well?
It's going to go badly. I mean, unless she's into that kind of thing. But anyway, so that's she's stumbling at some of these hurdles, and this is our confirmation hearing. So it's a kind of it's to rubber stamp her entry to the U.S. Supreme Court. But it seems to be exposing some failings.
These things have become a bit of a meme because, of course, it's not meant to be political, but it obviously is.
Yeah.
So what happens is remember the last few. I mean, remember Kavanaugh is the most good example of this, in which they'll have him on, and because he's a Republican, the Democrats will literally just make stuff up or just lie or just try and grill him on things that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And these became a meme. It was like whoever gets picked is just going to get roasted for things they haven't done.
Yeah.
But in this case, I find it interesting because these are things she just genuinely believes. Like, this isn't concocted.
Yeah.
There is no way that she does not believe in woke ideology. Otherwise, she'd be able to answer the questions.
Yeah.
And instead, she's keeping to herself because she knows, actually, my opinions are mad. And if I broadcast that in my confirmation, it's not going to go well.
Yeah. Okay, the next clip is this should be the babies are racist one.
So, Judge Jackson, all of us will agree that no one should be discriminated against because of race. When you just testified a minute ago that you didn't know if critical race theory was taught in K through 12, I will confess I find that statement a little hard to reconcile with the public record, because if you look at the Georgetown Day School's curriculum, it is filled and overflowing with critical race theory. That among the books that are either assigned or recommended, they include Critical Race Theory, an introduction. They include The End of Policing, an advocacy for abolishing police. They include How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi. They include literally stacks and stacks of books, and I'll tell you two of the ones that were most stunning. They include a book called Anti-Racist Baby by Ibram Kendi. And there are portions of this book that I find really quite remarkable. One portion of the book says babies are taught to be racist or anti-racist. There is no neutrality. Another portion of the book they recommend to babies confess when being racist. Now, this is a book that is taught at Georgetown Day School to students in pre-K through second grade, so 4 through 7 years old. Do you agree with this book that is being taught with kids that babies are racist?
Senator, I do not believe that any child should be made to feel as though they are racist or though they are not valued or though they are less than, that they are victims, that they are oppressors. I don't believe in any of that.
Oh,
but what
really?
I will say is that when you asked me whether or not this was taught in schools, critical race theory, my understanding is that critical race theory as an academic theory is taught in law schools. And to the extent that you were asking the question, I understood you to be addressing public schools. Georgetown Day School, just like the religious school that Justice Barrett was on the board of, is a private school.
Okay, so you agree critical race theory is taught at Georgetown Day School?
I don't know because the board is not, the board does not control the curriculum. The board does not focus on that. That's not what we do as board members. So I'm actually not sure.
Well, and I'll know.
So she's on the board of this school and she doesn't know if critical race theory is being taught. And also,
I just gave you the reading list.
she seems to be, unsure about, the origins of critical race theory and seems to think it's just something that exists in academia, in law school. And it originated at Harvard Law School where she and Ted Cruz studied. So, you'd think she'd have a pretty good
I love
understanding
that was
of it.
a huge pause there. He just laid out, look,
Yeah.
isn't this horrible? And she was like,
She was like,
Fuck 'em.
oh my God, he's got me.
I'm going to have to
He's
default
got me.
to, yeah, maybe we shouldn't do that to kids because it's evil. You all know it's evil.
Yeah, forcing babies to confess their racism, like that is insanity. But so she's on the board of this school, and she says that she doesn't know if they teach critical race theory. Obviously, they do, and that was books that Ted Cruz had taken from that school. So, he hadn't taken them. He's not a member of the library. But she also made some pretty bizarre claims around some radical groups, some radical leftist groups. So in the next one, she makes a pretty weird claim about the Black Israelites.
But what I will say is that when you
She hasn't finished.
asked me whether or not this was taught in schools, critical race theory, my understanding is that critical race theory as an academic theory is taught in law schools. And to the extent that you were asking the question, I understood you to be addressing public schools. Georgetown Day School,
that's the same
just
one.
That's
like
the end of the same clip. Yeah, sorry.
We
there's
can
another.
skip to the next one. Sorry. Well, we'll get to the next one and find out what it is.
So I believe you, and I've read your sentencing hearing in each
wait,
one
this
of these
is-
cases for which we have transcripts, and there's several of which we
If we
don't have.
pause this just for a second. So this is actually about her child porn sentencing record. So Ted Cruz has dug through and got the stats on her sentencing, which seems to be much lighter than the state's average and much lighter, much more lenient than the recommended sentencing. So judges, so she's been a judge in child porn cases, and they've got recommended sentences to hand out for certain crimes. The person's found guilty, and she's given them much lighter. I think it works out around 50% more lenient. So you serve 50% less time. So if any of you, have got a Gary Glitter hard drive, if you get hauled in front of the courts, make sure you get her. She's definitely one of the more lenient ones. And these are some pretty horrific offences. But we'll hear Ted Cruz talk about the sentencing
Transcripts. So in each of these cases, you read from the same script. So in each of these cases, you say that the distribution of child pornography is an extremely serious federal crime. And you point out that the crime involves people who are taking pictures and videos of real children while the children are being sexually abused. In Hess, you pointed out that he had hundreds of images of children in sexually compromised position. Some of them engaged in sadomasochistic acts. All of this I'm reading from you on the bench. And most importantly, the children in these pictures are not knowing and willing participants in the degrading conduct that was being depicted. They were being forced by someone off screen to commit unspeakable acts of sexual violence for the pleasure of the people filming them and for the gratification of people everywhere. And what concerns me is that many of those people have absolutely no shred of empathy for what that conduct does for the children who were being abused in this way. And you read this script in every one of these cases. So you talk about that these are terrible, terrible crimes.
Yeah, these are like the worst crimes.
But you also, and in Hess, you said, I have to say that what I found particularly disturbing about your offense was that, quote, you apparently concocted a story about having photographed your own daughter, who you purportedly were willing to take pictures of to trade with other people. I know from your comments and from those who know you that you are unlikely to ever harm a child, which I find remarkable that you've got a child predator in your court who says, I'm unlikely to harm a child. And you say, well, you told me that, so clearly you're unlikely. But you say, but in the context of the crime, you represented that you would. That in and of itself is astonishing. So you talk about it as astonishing. You nonetheless sentenced him to the very lowest possible sentence allowed under law. And what's striking is in these cases, and half of them in 5, you sentenced the defendant to the absolute lowest sentence under law.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, absolutely shocking. So she's handing out very lenient sentences and doesn't seem to have, she's making excuses for the defendant where she's not recognizing the harm that's done by consuming. She's saying they're consuming the pornography. They're not committing the harm themselves, but a consumer of pornography is causing the pornography to be created. It's like, if you eat a steak, you're not killing the cow yourself, but it's killed for your steak. So, yeah, horrific. And then this guy.
To think about it overnight, this is a case where you had an 18-year-old who possessed and distributed hundreds of images of 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds, and you gave him, frankly, a slap on the wrist sentence of 3 months.
Senator,
you regret it?
I don't remember whether it was distribution or possession in the law.
Both. Do you regret it?
In the law, there are different crimes that people commit
Judge,
in
you
this
gave him
area.
3 months. My question is, do you regret it or not?
Senator, what I regret is that in a hearing about my qualifications to be a justice on the Supreme Court, we've spent a lot of time focusing on this small subset of my sentences, and I've tried to explain.
You regret that
many
we're focusing
times
on your cases? I don't understand.
No. I'm talking about the fact that you're talking about
child pornography
7
cases?
Very serious cases.
I'm glad we agree on that. Don't you think we should be focusing on
some of which involve conduct that I sentence people to 25, 30 years.
3 months in this case, Judge. Do you regret it? You haven't answered my question yet.
Senator,
do you regret this sentence?
Senator, I would have to look at the circumstances. What I'm telling you.
You know the circumstances. We discussed it for half an hour yesterday. There's a 55-page transcript, which I'm sure you've read. You lived it. As you've emphasized to this committee over and over, you've lived it, right? You said that you've been through all of this. You've looked at all of the images. You're the one who's had to endure all of it. You gave him a 3-month sentence. I just wonder if you regret it or if you stand by it. I mean, do you stand by that sentence?
Senator, in every case, I followed what Congress authorized me to do in looking to the best of my ability at all of the various factors that apply, that constrain judges, that give us discretion, but also tell us how to sentence. And I ruled in every case based on all of the relevant factors.
So you don't regret it?
No one case
Right, yeah. So she
already said no
I was
as well.
expecting a deflection there, and she says, why are you judging me? Why are you judging my abilities as a judge on my history as a
Well, that's
judge?
the thing. She said no immediately because he asked, "Do you regret it?" And she said, "No. What I regret," but she said,
It's
sorry,
being asked about
I
it.
regret being asked about it.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So that's a no. That's an implicit no in the statement.
And in the full interview with Ted Cruz, who's the other guy interviewing her at the congressional hearing, she says that a lot of child porn collectors, child porn users are curating collections and not causing significant harm, and they're just interested in the technology, which seems the most bizarre get around, to try and minimize what's one of the most horrific crimes. It's so weird.
Transparent. That's what it is.
And,
You notice how, remember Amy Coney Barrett? You remember when she was getting put up for the position? The criticism of her from the left was she was too hard on abortion.
Yeah.
That was it. That was as deep as they could get as
Yeah.
why she's a bad person.
Yeah. And obviously,
Whereas
I mean,
this is just
abortion is a sort of quite a strong issue for the Supreme Court because but
there's a debate to be had. There is no debate to be had on her subject.
Yeah. There's a final. The Supreme Court has a final say on weighing up where reproductive rights, where the balance is to be struck. Because I mean, it is pretty mad at 15 weeks, 16 weeks,
As I
which
say,
I think is
that's the difference.
Yeah,
there's a debate to be had. Whereas
there's a
with her,
debate to be had.
There's no debate to be had with what she is discussing.
Well, but there is a debate to be had as to whether child porn with the
Should they get 3 months?
proliferation of internet and with the sort of, I guess, the easier accessibility to it than in the 80s where you'd have to probably I don't know know a criminal gang or whatever it is.
But should they get 3 months?
But there's certainly a debate to be had that's very relevant to the Democratic Party and the modern left because they seem
accept
to be,
that.
as we saw in your segment, they're bringing sexuality into schools. They're bringing children. They're making them more aware, and they're sort of almost grooming them in sexualized matters. Whether that's the pride parades or whether that's something else. Stuff that generally.
Well, no, it's just simple here. We don't even have to go there. We don't even have to go there at all. We can literally look at just left-wing ideology on nonces, and they're just like, well, society made them do it.
Yeah.
And that's why you end up with such light sentences. It's like, no, they did it.
Yeah.
That's why they get the sentence, and it should be big.
Yeah.
It should not be 3 months.
So it's something that as a society we need to keep an eye on this sort of creeping noncery in the left.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the history series, the epochs, this one on Napoleon's early victories between Beau and Karl. And if you want to follow what else is coming out, you can always follow Karl at Karl Benjamin on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.